Thank you very much. It's a smaller crowd, so I'm much more comfortable now than having many people sitting across the table. So my name is Santhosh Therakam. I'm the Technical Director for Risk at Jacobs. The topic I'm going to talk about is the role of risk management in the success or failure of mega projects. So do we have a pointer by any chance? Pointer, please. Yep, thank you. So about myself. So I'm a civil engineer. I did my master's in highway engineering. I'm a chartered professional accountant as well. The previous speaker, guilty as charged, I'm accountant as well. So bear with me there. Do we have some place where to put the glass or this corner? I can put it there. It's good. I worked as a consultant, as a contractor, and as a client, and I have seen the whole of life. So when you talk about risk management, we are supposed to look at the whole of life, and we have got different perspectives. The client has got his own view. The contractor thinks that he is bound by the terms and conditions. The consultant thinks that tick and flick. I did my job. I have got nothing more to do. So this is where I'm having the perspective from all three sides. And that's sometimes it is a big task for me. It doesn't fit into, am I doing the right thing? When I'm working as a consultant, I'll be looking for other elements as well. The iconic projects I worked on include Sydney Metro, Cross River Rail, Inland Rail, BHP Olympic Dam, Black Point Power Plant in Hong Kong, Advanced Fighting Vehicles, AFV, Land 400, Land 121, Tyndall projects under defense, Abbott Point, the coal terminal, oil and gas projects in Qatar and Oman. I was in Qatar and Oman for about 5 years. I toiled myself there. That's where I have picked up most of my project controls, project management, and complex thinking, the system thinking. Usually what happens is that if you're working on a specific element, and we expect that, that's fine, this is how this business is being done. But when you get into the systemic thinking, the things will be, you'll be getting a different perspective. We'll talk about that during this presentation here. Let us start with defining the problem. What exactly is the problem? With the increase in size, we are in the mega project zone, so I thought of just using this as the trigger for the purpose of our presentation. The increase in size, the projects are becoming much more bigger and complex and multidisciplinary. And the tool sets, the skill sets, and the tools what we have are not appropriate for managing the complex projects. The previous speaker, she touched upon those elements as well. And this morning, you might have heard about the keynote speaker. I was thinking, it looks like I have copied most of his slides, but it was done much before that. So rest assured, there is no copyright infringements here. And then looking into these traditional practices, we talked about dealing the things in the complexity. I'll be talking about the complexity. That keynote speaker, he talked about the complexity as well. Using the complicated system mindset to deal with complex projects. That is the biggest problem what we have in place right now. That is what is driving that insanity. We'll talk about that in a second. And the other thing is that long-term value is sacrificed in pursuit of short-term benefits. You got a set amount of finite budget, and you want to deliver something, right? And we are looking into only the cost, time, quality to deliver that particular piece of work, the project or the program. But how does it fit in the scheme of things? The big picture, the whole of life. Is it going to give you the so-called benefits realization? What are the key objectives? And again, going back to the previous speaker. So those elements we need to look at. And the risk leadership, the way the risk leadership is being managed right now, we are breaking down into small segmental things, expecting we can solve the problems. And it is not going to work for a complex environment, as I said before. So we have to have a radical change. I work on multi-billion capex projects, especially if you're from Brisbane. I'm on Cross River Rail, $6 billion. Inland Rail, $10 billion. I was in Hong Kong, is about 7 billion Hong Kong dollars there. So the thing is, it's not a bulk earthworks wherein a set of things, you put the equipment and that will do the job. It is multidiscipline across the industry and people. People is the most important thing here. And we'll talk about that in more in detail in a second. So I'll start with this defining the complexity. You might have heard about this particular table, the figure what you see here in a different format this morning from the keynote speaker. You can see that, starting from control, complicated, complex, and chaos. Just look at these things here. Simple things. The control one is the simple practice. You are going to go for a trench of 1.2 meter wide or whatever that could be and 1 meter deep. And you are trenching for the purpose of laying cables. And known ground conditions, no uncertainties there. That is pretty simple. We can assign what sort of productivity is required and how much budget is going to cost, what sort of resources we require, and we will be just on the dot. And when you look into the complicated ones, there you need to go one step more. That step is about expert-based and consultative leadership is required. I'll give you some examples in the further slides there. And the next one is the complex one. And this complexity, when we talk about it, is experimental and collaborative. Just please mark the word collaborative here. Collaborative is what is lacking in the current industry. The master and slave. The client thinks that I gave you this particular piece of work and I'm paying you for my risk. That's it. It's your botheration, right? And please get me the reports. Reports is one part of the scope. I will talk about what are the other things we can do, answering some of the questions the previous speaker was asking. And then the next one is that chaos, resulting in chaos. That is the tipping point. When you get to the chaos, that's where there is no right or wrong solution. That's where the innovation is challenged. Disruptive technologies, whatever that we talk about, all these things will be fitted within this, defining this complexity part of it. So now, let us look at what is complicated. I used to hear, it's not a rocket science, guys. It's not a rocket science. Even the rocket science is not complex. Building a rocket is not complex. It is complicated. It can be broken down into segments, pieces, wherein you can address each and every element, and you can expect the desired output out of that. What is complex is this. Can you guarantee this guy will come out to be what you expect him to be? In spite of all the emotional support, whatever that you are going to give? Jokes aside, let's get into serious things here. Getting the rockets back, launching of rockets is complex. And bringing them back onto drones like this, water-based drones, where we have to synchronize the motions there, and getting the rockets for reuse and the fairings or whatever that goes, that is complex. And how many people have managed this complexity? Only one company so far, SpaceX. So that's where what is complex for one need not be complex for others. So they have mastered the technology, they mastered these particular systems, and now it is complicated for them, no more complex. So that's how we just move on with our maturity of the organizations and the projects we work on. Just to put some characteristics here. Again, our keynote speaker, he talked about the certain elements here. The causality, the cause, the linear cause and effect will be there for complicated ones, whereas for the complex, you'll be finding there is no distinguishable demarcation between these two. The cause and effects are totally different. It can come from nowhere. And the second one is that linearity. Output is proportional to input for the complicated ones, whereas in complex, they are not proportional. So we think that if I'm going to put 10 people or increase my friends from 1 to 3, I can clear the whole area or I can finish the project. It may not work out pretty much like that in a complex environment. It might be having many inputs into that. So that complexity needs to be properly understood before we just come to conclusions there. And the decomposability, breaking down of the problem into small segmental structural parts and dealing them on a piecemeal basis. The complexity doesn't work like that because the complexity is not well understood. Controllability, it can be diagnosed and permanently solved as far as the complicated problem is concerned, whereas in complex, it is not so. and the freedom, limited and constrained, whereas the other one is nested within the larger complex environment where you don't have any control. Sometimes, it'll be the community. It could be climate change. It could be unknown ground conditions or variability across your whatever the tunnel or whatever that you are going to build. And the last two are my favorite elements here, foreseeability. Why the foreseeability is so important? Look at this one here. They are not dependent on the amount of available data or the knowledge. That's what we expect, right? We are working in this industry. We are experienced contractors, engineers, and clients. We have built similar projects. But what happens is that is no more the yardstick, and that cannot be the basis for the purpose of your success. The last one is that adaptability. Can we adapt a solution from the previous problem to this particular project? No. You have to be innovative. Somebody was talking about innovation this morning, just hearing about it. Innovation, forget about innovation. No, it is not right. You have to be innovative, you have to be collaborative. So today's presentation, I'm just going to touch upon those elements. Why projects fail? Just I came out with this particular survey done by Standish Group, about 2,500 people they have surveyed. And you can see that about 80% of the problems are human-related, process-related. You can see that poor organization or project management practices or poorly defined or missing project objectives. Then the next element is that insufficient or inefficient project resources. You don't have the right resources for managing these projects. And the next one is that inadequate project planning and control systems. And if you look into the technical aspects here, it's only 4%. Technicality stopping or making your project failure from this particular study is only 4%. That tells us the gravity of problem what we have on our hands and what are we going to do about it. So I came out with this particular wheel of project failure. And whatever that we talk about, there are about 10 elements in this, what can be seen. My apologies for such a small print there. So the things what you see here is that insanity. We talked about insanity. We are doing the same thing time and again, and we are expecting a different result. So it is the same story, whatever that you heard before. The next one is that a value. How value is defined? Is it the cost? Is the politician who made a political promise that he's going to spend $1 billion in this particular constituency, and that is what makes the project tick? Not the actual the priority. Prioritize based on the requirements. And mentality, win-lose mentality. We'll talk about this in more detail when I just go through for the slides there. Optimism bias. Then poor execution. You're looking at the B team. Why B team? We'll talk about it in a second. Risk transfer. Just heard that, we have this terms and conditions. A risk is transferred. Are you really transferring the risk from the client to the contractor? To what extent your T's and C's are going to help you? And the rigor, lack of rigor. And then innovation, lack of innovation. Transformational or transactional leadership. What do we have? So these are the key drivers, in my opinion, are the key drivers behind the project success or failure. Just look at this one here. What did Albert Einstein say? The same thing, the insanity, we talked about it. So we are applying the tools that are used for managing complicated projects for delivering complex projects, in short. And we are not learning anything out of that. And we are trying to decompose the problems into small segmental things, expecting that these things will go away. And who defines the value? I have got two examples here. The first one is from Denver. Denver has rejected Olympics in favor of the environment and economy of this particular country, or the particular part. And this is after they winning the bid to host the Olympics. Why is it so? Olympics is a matter of status or something like that. But is it worth? Where are you putting that money? Tens of billions of dollars will be spent for this Olympics. I'm glad. I just watched Olympics, so please don't take me wrong there. But the message here is that, is it the burning topic? India is growing country there. We are sending rockets and satellites to the moon. Is it the priority for the country? Just look at the country, your community, your requirements. That's what is supposed to drive what the value is, and then who defines that. And the second example here It is basically from both Seattle Tunnel. This is the largest tunnel, 17.5-meter diameter tunnel. And this goes from within the city to within the city. It goes nowhere. It only replaces the viaduct. And the community said, we don't want this particular tunnel because you're replacing the overpass with underground tunnel there, and you're charging toll on that. That's all good. But start and end, again, the bottlenecks, you're not doing anything before and after. That is what is required, Mr. Governor. But the governor decided, no, I made a promise. Billions of dollars, how much was that? $2.8 billion was the budget allocated for that. It is going to create lots of employment there, and that takes that political mileage. They promised something, and they're going to deliver. And what happened? That particular project was delayed by 2 years, and the budget has gone up by 45%. And end of the day, makes traffic even worse. So this is where, we talk about the projects. Project controls, the symposium, whenever we go, we talk about cost, time, and quality, and delivering on time, and all these things. That is good. That is one of the objectives. That is not the objective. The objective is much bigger than that. Value realization. What are the benefits we are trying to achieve from having these particular projects delivered? Optimism bias. It's a double whammy here. Underestimation of cost, scope, and your time, and overestimation of benefits, and whatever that internal rate of returns and the cost that associated to make it look nicer at a lower cost and expanding or enhancing or fabricating the benefits of this particular thing. I got a few more stats here. This is in the public domain, or go to Mr. Flyberg's book. You can get this information from there. Road projects, 20% over the budget, 9 out of 10 cases. Bridges and tunnels, 35%. Rail projects, underestimation of budget by 45% and overestimation of benefits by 50%. Olympics, 179%. Just look at it, because Olympics is a time bound. It has to be delivered. They don't care. If they don't deliver by that given time, Olympics will not happen. So that's where they keep pumping money, and they get bigger and bigger equipment, and the costs go through the sky. The most expensive cost blowout in the industry of, in the history of mega projects around the world. Any takers on that? Oh, who said that? Oh, fantastic. Last week I was presenting at World Engineers Convention, and somebody said, my wife. I said, I should have met that guy before at that particular presentation. You're right. This is the Sydney Opera House. And how? 1,400% cost blowout, 10 years late. So we blame the Sydney Opera House and the project managers for that. But the problems are many. Like, the scope has been changed, the goalpost has been changed, the objectives were different, and whatever that the facade and other things what you're looking at was different to what they have started. 10 years, 10 long years. So when we talk about the project controls, it is controlling environment. You have to have a baseline. Where is the baseline for this? So this is what is going to cause the problem. And if you are from Queensland, Brisbane, this is one of the things, the longest tunnel in Australia, Airport Link. About $2.3 billion, we started with the $2.3 billion business case. We ended up in spending 4.8, about 109% cost overrun. And the actual traffic was only 30% of the forecast. So you might have heard about Clem 7 as well. The consultant, the engineering consultant, I don't want to name the company there, so they ended up in paying $400 million as insurance payout, but that did not stop the PPP from becoming bankrupt. So imagine the gravity there. So what are we talking about? So who is responsible here? Is the client, the contractor, or the consultant? Everybody is party to the scope. This is what we are going to talk about, the lack of rigor in the development phase. So here, lack of robustness and rigor in the business case. We just make business case to get the tick the box. Time bound. I was just talking to the clients, I work across Asia Pacific and Middle East. I come across a variety of clients, and they say, I don't care, Santhosh, you are talking about all this rigor, robustness, park everything aside. we need this particular business case to be put before our committee by within 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever the time is that. Okay? So for me to have a proper assessment of that, I need to have a proper scope. Where is your scope? Yeah, we are still working on the designs. Don't worry about it. Okay? Where is the cost estimate? Yeah, we are still fine-tuning it. And we are adding something, taking something off, and different options, we are still talking about it. Okay? What about the schedule? That is schedule constraint. We have to deliver by XYZ date. So you want me to provide you guidance, advisory on that? No problems, guys. Come to the party. Put everybody in the room and start putting everything on the screen there and just make them aware the mistake they are doing time and again. They realize, they blame me. Some of my clients, they don't like me at all. But they call me again for conducting the workshops and to just make that particular advice. So if you're a consultant, ensure whether the client likes it or not, speak the truth. Tell the client. And after that, if the client still decides to go with whatever the decision they're going to make, that is up to them. So now going to these ones here, there's scope uncertainties. You freeze your scope. If you don't freeze your scope, then you're keeping room for the current arrangement I'm talking about. Keeping or triggering your whatever the claims and counterclaims and delays, and the projects are delayed, and you don't realize the value of the project you're expected to do. So I'm seeing that some of the projects are 2 years, 3 years late, and the client says that, I don't care. It is a contractor's risk, and he is paying money for that. But you lost 3 years of not having that asset built in time. And what is the loss converted to dollars and the value, benefits lost? Are you translating those into the benefit realization? And see that in whose interest are we supposed to work here? End of the day, it's community or the shareholder, stakeholders, or whoever that could be, that needs to be taken into account. Then look into this unscheduled schedule expectations, unrealistic scheduled expectations. So this is what happens is, they think that this is schedule constraint project, guys, and we need it by December 2020. Okay? Are we ready for that? The long lead items, it may take 3 months more. Okay? So how do you want to address that? But end date, you can't change the end date. Don't write anywhere in your report. Okay? So is it the solution? Or do you want to be realistic about end date is going to be 3 months after your expected date of completion, expected date of completion? People get hung up. I was on this lean schedule presentation before coming to this one here. Just we are talking about whiteboard, the schedule whiteboards. It's all good. But I'm looking at risk-based schedule, wherein you can see that what the P90 schedule date would look like on the same whiteboard. That gives us more insight as to, this may not be finished by the given date, and if you want that, what else we need to do? Creating more fronts or getting more contractors if the fronts are available, or day one, this project is not going to be delivered by XYZ date. Then you just take it to your executive and tell them that we cannot deliver this particular project by the given date and we require extra time. You can't just put money, that constraint footprint, whatever that you're going to work with. And the next one is that regulatory approvals, red tapeism, and the timelines that are required for that. Not getting the stakeholders engaged from day one, from the business case stage itself, understand their requirements. I was on one of the projects, without naming the company here, is a heavy rail project. The PPP were told that you have to deliver this rolling stock to this particular specification. Okay, where is the specification? Yeah, you tell us what the specification would look like. Okay, that's great. So they came out with their off-the-shelf design. And the client said, we are still working on our concept of operations, ConOps. So we cannot tell you. You keep building it, and we keep reviewing your design, and we'll come out with some sort of a feedback. And that project got delayed by 1.5 years before the first rolling stock was delivered. And when it has landed, just like hawks, they've started pulling apart. This is not right, that is not right. And where is the consultation there? Where is the collaborative environment there? And who is the loser? The community. The community could not get the particular, the rolling stock, which was supposed to decongest the city. It did not happen. It was delayed by 1.5 years, and even now it is going on. The next one is that poor stakeholder engagement, talking to the client requirements, talk to the regulators ahead of time, interface issues. And the last one, there's no excuse there. Deliberate negligence. We know PFAS is an issue in one of the airport projects I was working on, and that was there about 5 or 8 years ago. And now they stopped the work to ensure that the PFAS is addressed. I asked this question, don't you know that it has got this PFAS that needs to be addressed before your commencement of work? Yeah, we know, Santhosh, but the time, there was no such requirement that PFAS needs to be treated. But it is going to have an impact on the water. Ground table is going to be contaminated as a result of that. And there is some guideline somewhere. They said, yep, that was not mandatory, and we hushed it. And now what's happening? They have to stop this particular runway from operation. They have to clear the whole area for this PFAS. So these are the things. There is no excuse for that. The next one, Sydney Light Rail. You might have heard about this. $1.6 billion business case. Originally they started with. Cost to date is about $3 billion. About 100% cost overrun to date, running late by 1 year. And the PPP, and they claimed variation on New South Wales government for $1.1 billion. And what are the grounds for that? The government has misled over the project's complexity. These are not my words, they are in the public domain. And don't quote me anywhere, guys. So this is the public domain. I'm just presenting it here. As a community, we need to realize what happens if you don't disclose certain things ahead of time. If you have a problem there, you know that this misleading or deceptive conduct over the cost of replacing power lines in the CBD. And that was not disclosed. And this particular party, the PPP, special purpose vehicle, he went there and he found the problems. And there may be, I'm not saying who is right or wrong there, but it resulted in about $576 million in settlement there. So this one was done by IPA. This is one of the things I was talking about, transfer of risks. And they say the client pays for risk twice. Once at the time of award of contract, the second time when they realize they cannot transfer the risk to the contractor. Why in the first instance you transfer the risk to the contractor when you know that it is not going to stay, it is not going to stand the test of the rule of the land? Legally, you cannot enforce such a thing. So what are we supposed to do? Hold on to your risks. If you are a client, and if you are certain things like uncertainty, we say that unknown ground conditions, latent conditions, it is contractor's risk. Contractor doesn't have a crystal ball to realize that what exactly is there in the ground there, and he will be bound and informed by the minimum, whatever the ground testing, ground truthing that is done by the client. So this is where you need to do all the ground testing to the extent possible early on. That will enhance the confidence of your estimate, the scope, what you're going to deliver. So these are the things that we need to be cognizant of. Win-lose mentality, the alignment. There is a misalignment in the present market. And we see that master-slave relation. I'm the client, I'm the master, I'm paying you, I tell you what you need to do. And then toxic relation as a result of that. Then we are looking to the contractual rather than collaborative working. From day one, I was an EPC contractor. Way back in the Middle East, I was telling before, about 5 years. The day one, what I look for is that where are the gaps? And keep myself lined up for that. It is because of this particular toxic relation what we have there. The clients are not accommodative. The contract terms and conditions, it was FIDIC, contract conditions, anything under the sky is contractor's responsibility. So that sort of environment I worked in. So that has given me a little more insight as to see that where the contractors are coming from. They put some premium, risk premium. There is no free lunch, guys. The contractor has to survive, right? So he puts the premium on the risk without realizing that what the risk would look like. Hit and run. Some cases, they will be better off. Some cases, they will be badly hit. So that's where they start sending all these contractual letters to the client there. And overemphasis on terms and conditions. Transactional type of leadership. It is becoming totally contractual. From the day one, we'll be looking to how to recover the losses and enhance the profits. That is the sole motto as far as the contract is concerned. And the client thinks that I just on the dotted line, I got these things signed off, I'm okay. I don't require to worry much about it. And it's reactive and lag indicators. So when you look into the project control systems, they're lag indicators, like how we have done to date, and we try to portray that earned value and just looking forward towards CPIs and SPIs and everything we do. It's all good. We need that. But at the same time, we need to look for lead indicators. I'll talk about that in a second. Innovation. It's a lack of innovation. Why? There is no incentive incentive for doing the innovation because the client is not going to pay. They're not going to share the benefits coming out of that. So this is where the contractors are, project leaders are risk averse, including the clients. They are under time pressure. They have to deliver the projects by given time. And firefighting, wherever you happen to go, from the day one, you are on the firefighting. You're saying that how best I can just get out of that unscathed. And lack of knowledge, there's another thing. And it's too late for innovation, guys. No, sorry, we can't do that. Low productivity, we talked about, the keynote speaker, he was talking about the productivity as well. The construction productivity is flat over the, according to these McKinsey's, for decades. Whereas at the same time, manufacturing, it has doubled. And continuous improvement, the previous speaker was talking about the continuous improvement as well. So continuous improvement is the norm if you go into the manufacturing. Why can't we get that sort of a mindset into the construction? This is where we need to ask these questions as a community, as a project controls community. We need to see what can we do. We need to have that thinking hats always. See that you have to keep challenging yourselves. That's one of the reasons why I went to do my Chartered Professional Accountancy, CPA degree. The reason is not that I'm a postgraduate in civil engineering, but I was having all this experience, but I was not having the academic qualification to appreciate what actually happens on the other side of the fence. We say that accountants, guys, you're very prescriptive. It is true. That is all about the project controls. We are all about the prescriptive way of doing the things. Once everything is set up, the baseline is in place, that's when the project controls will be effective. So if the baseline itself is not appropriate, it's not properly managed, or it is not having the robust rigor, then you can expect whatever that output is going to be. Somebody was telling that garbage in, I say gospel out. And people look to the last end and say that, oh, this is what you said. And this is where, guys, we have to be very careful about it. Poor execution. Just look at the B team. Why? A team is busy elsewhere. They're not available. They're firefighting on other project. The project got delayed about 2 years, so the team is not available. No alternative high caliber people are available. And resumes are very great on paper. Just like myself, so many qualifications there. Do you really have the skill sets required to deliver the things or not? And have you really worked in that sort of an environment? Sorry, that's the most important thing. Excuse me. Lack of skills and experience on high stress, high value, high risk projects. Lack of internal controls. When we talk about the internal controls, it is not the tools and systems. It is the rigor that what you put into that. The input, the quality of input that gets into the internal controls there. And lack of mentoring, upskilling, lessons learned, that is one of the key things, what I see. So when we talk about the triple constraint, the time, cost, and quality, what I say that it has to be expanded further. Somebody was asking a question, how can we measure that? We'll talk about that in a second. How to enhance the chances of project success? You got ISO 31000. It has got the framework, it has got the process. The middle of that is the leadership. Leadership, you need to have a risk-based decision making. You need to think, what does it mean? What if? The scenario analysis you need to carry out and be prepared for that sort of a scenario. Things can go wrong here. What can we do? These are the people that we need to consult and other things we need to do. And the other one is that COSO, the COSO Internal Control Integrated Framework. And this has got 3 lines of defense, as you can see here. And in addition to that, I came out with this wheel of value creation. Just look at these things here. The outer circle, or outer rim, are the key stakeholders. And who are the stakeholders here? You got the sponsor here, you got the client, and the stakeholders, and the advisors. These are the guys to start with the front end of the project. Then you got the contractor, subcontractor, and the suppliers. So this is the team that will be added later on. So what we can do, the governance and the visibility at the, sorry, I can't read that. Visibility over the end of the project, in the end case, what that would look like. You need to foresee what that would look like. We talked about complexity, foreseeability is a problem there, but you need to keep updating. You need to be agile to see that, okay, these are the things we made, how it is going to impact the project objectives, and how we are going to deliver that. So that think tank And we talked about leadership and management in the keynote speaker's address this morning. Absolutely. And each one of us, we are not only the managers, we need to play the role of the leader as well as the manager. So both things are there within us. When it is supposed to be controlled environment, you are becoming a manager there, and strategic thinking, looking forward, all your, the so-called lean systems and other things, that's where your thinking hat comes into the picture. Oh, these things are definitely going off. What can we do? And you look for lead indicators there. And then look at this one here. This is the most important part for making a project success. So that is the development phase we are talking about. And here, it is a collaborative environment. So when you talk about the collaborative environment, it starts with innovation. It looks into collaborative commercial arrangements and looks into a risk and reward. The client is willing to share the benefits he accrues, he gets as a result of this innovative thinking. So share that knowledge, share that whatever the profit that you get out of that. So business as usual is not going to work. We talked about insanity there. So right from the business case, don't let the politicians define what the value is. In one of the projects recently I was working on, without naming the project here, very sensitive, we did that business case, and we said, this particular project is not financially viable. And that was given to the state, and from the state has gone to the feds. But looks like the minister has made a political promise during the election saying that we are going to spend this much of money, this is going to happen. So he said, go ahead. He has given the go-ahead nod. So now we started looking to the repercussions of that particular decision. So the people end up in paying the toll in whatever the form or shape that could be, and it is going to be most cost ineffective. That money should have been spent somewhere else. Decongesting the city. Look for smart city. Look for satellite townships wherein that will be self-sustained rather than just bringing everybody to the CBD. So this is where we need to think outside the box. And I know that as a project controls experts, we may not be involved in that, but to the extent that it needs to be done. Address this optimism bias. Don't fudge the numbers. Don't fudge the numbers for the sake of funding. And identify the risks, honors risks, and this is where the risk allocation comes into the picture. Who is best placed to mitigate the risk? Hold on to that. And this is as I said before, this is the engine room, development phase. This is where shortlist 2 or 3 entities and ask for innovative solutions. That is the most important part. It's not that you say that, this is what you're going to build. You tell that this is what we have done as the front-end engineering. We have done this particular business case. This is the scope, what we think we need to deliver. Can you meet or beat our criteria there? And then look to the whole of life approach, all the benefits and other things we need to look into. Build in the collaborative commercial environment then and there from that particular stage. Not wait for award of contract and then start talking about innovation. No, it will be too late by then. Start doing that exercise, bring it forward. And that don't transfer the risks, honors risk to the contractor. We know why. You are going to pay twice, Mr. Client. And develop incentive schemes, risk and reward, sharing and caring. And then it gets to a proper governance and alignment. When we talk about the governance, it is not only XYZ will be doing XYZ. It is a change management. How the changes are going to be managed, and who are the key people in the decision making, and transformation leadership, and how we can accommodate others' views, how flexible we are. Because we talked about complexity wherein it's not the cause and effect are not clearly distinguishable. That being the case, you need to be on your toes. You need to be flexible enough to accommodate any changes that the project or the scope might warrant down the line. So this is the last slide of mine. My apologies. This is so much information there, fine print. So this one is that up to the business case phase. The second part is the development phase. And the third part is the delivery phase. In the previous slides, whatever that we talked about, I tried to consolidate everything into this particular sheet here. You can see here, define the value. And I have got don'ts. It says that do not let politicians define the value for your project there. Do not fuzz the numbers for the sake of getting the funding. And avoid the optimism bias, because when you are developing a robust business case here, and day one, decide what sort of business case you're developing there. I can just give an example from South Korea. I was on one of the projects there. They do the projects, and that will be given to a committee, not the politicians, mind you. It is a committee. All are competing projects. All are having NPVs or whatever that BCR more than 2 or whatever that could be. And they look into the holistically. They look into the things. Which particular project is going to actually meet or add value to the community there, and how we can enhance the capability. So somebody was talking about the capability enhancement. So that is one of the objectives. So those things, they go through that particular rigor, and about 30-35% of the projects only go. Only 30-35% of projects are funded. And the rest of the projects, they go back to the drawing board, and they have to come out with breaking down that big projects into programs, into the smaller ones, tangible ones, and where the success of completion is guaranteed. And then initiate the process for the regulatory approvals, and whatever the initial ground truthing you need to do. And then when it comes to when the budget is approved, this is where we are looking at the development phase here. And this is where start with the 2 or 3 entities. It is not that we send the tenders out and the tenderers have given whatever the discussions you are having, negotiated, done and dusted. No, it's not. You need to have 2 or 3 streams running parallel, create some Chinese wall between them. And what you can do here, you can just provide them with the problems. What is the problem that you are trying to address? The builder or the entity will be having subcontractors and vendors, and you will be amazed to realize that how much innovation they can bring to the table. You got limited money, you got constraints, and they'll come out with certain things saying that, yep, we can fit these things. Your clearance the head clearance is what you're having a problem with. We have a solution for that. So those things will not come out if it is a traditional contracting currently what we are having here. And invite them for innovative solutions that meet or beat the desired value creation. And then during this particular phase, develop innovative solutions in terms of performance, de-risking of schedule. Sorry guys, it's just too small print for me from here as well. A safe working environment, the future proofing, and optimization. So these are the things that you are expecting the entities to develop. And to do during that particular process, there is an opportunity to demonstrate. What are we going to demonstrate? How value can be generated for the whole of life. The constructability issues we look into ahead of time. Technical know-how, this is where the innovation comes into the picture. Different parties will bring different viewpoints. And global experience, people with global experience can bring in something which is totally novel to this particular place. And key team members, demonstrate who are the team members going to be there on the project. Now what happens is that the time of the tender, that's what I used to do as a contractor, we just put all the top class, A team members, resumes, and that goes. And when the technical evaluation takes place, we get close to 90 and odd out of 100 based on the expertise and the technical know-how what we have. Then they look into the commercial part of it, we negotiate, and we get into the door, foot in the door. And then we say, who are there and who is not there. And sometimes you will be amazed to see that the contractors go to the extent of putting the people who are no more on the rolls. They walked out, but still you can see their CVs. Come on, guys, that is ethical issue there. So now, don'ts. So do not transfer the owner's risk to the contractor. Take away the toxic environment and keep it open communication between the client and the contractor and the consultants. And develop the KPIs in such a way that that becomes the baseline for your project controls. That's the most important thing. Your KPIs and KRIs well ahead of time. Try to ensure that is well understood what you're going to do, what you're going to measure against. The lead and lag indicators, balanced scorecard. This is what I was going to talk about in a second. So balanced scorecard is not the financial element alone. It has got 4 pillars. Any guesses from the floor? There are 4 pillars in a balanced scorecard. It is by name balanced scorecard. The first and foremost is financial. We know that. The second thing is the project controls and systems. The processes, what we have in place, the maturity of organization in just managing these projects. The third one is customer's input, their feedback, and how do they rate your performance, and their input, their maturity. All these things will be into the third leg there. And what is the fourth leg? learning and growth. This is where upskilling within the teams. Now, what we are seeing is that you're there, you're a drainage engineer, that's it. Your life, you'll be a drainage engineer from project to project you go. But when I was in the Middle East, when I was heading the business unit there, I ensured that these people will be on rotation from project to project. The structure designer will be doing pavement design in the next project, and the constructor, they will be rotated in such a way that they'll be upskilled. They know that in case if there's an emergency, they can step in, and that improves their capability as well. As a result, we'll come out with best for project solution, low risk, high confidence one, collaborative commercial arrangement, and fully aligned. That is what is required to set your tone for your delivery phase. And if you don't have that sort of a conducive environment, probably you're heading for a problem there. And once the contract is awarded, the rest of the stuff will be to follow the process after that. So you're having program governance there. That means you'll be looking at, you're empowering the people down the line, the project managers, construction managers to do the things there. And certain things which are common across the projects, it's a big project means, mega project means, that's not one project. The multiple projects that are sitting under, just take out all the things which can be managed at a program level and try to manage that at a program governance. That's where the governance and change management comes into the picture. If you need any help, raise your hand, tell that we don't have this particular capability. Can we have somebody to just come and help us? Call me, I will come, I'm from Jacobs. Then the next one is that develop the designs further. You got the innovation there, try to take it forward. Try to fine tune it without losing any focus or your attention, or that will definitely help you in delivering the projects on time. Establish robust internal control systems. So because already you got the KPIs and KRS in place here, you have baselined your estimate, you have baselined your schedule, and mostly your scope is defined. And that is low risk, high confidence scope. That is what's the target of a project control personnel. Because I was hub controls manager at Rio Tinto. It's about a $6.5 billion portfolio just I was managing there. So I come from construction background, and then I was heading the business unit, and then I moved into the project controls. Now I'm working as a consultant. That means lessons learned from previous life, pass on. And as a community, you be members of ACES or Risk Engineering Society or Engineers Australia or whatever that could be, wherein you can share your knowledge. Sharing is caring. That is the most important thing. We have to equip ourselves as a community. We have to raise our bar. We have to increase our capability within the business, within the community, and within the industry there. Incentives, risk and reward. Scan for external environment for risks that might impact to de-risk them. There's a collaborative environment we are talking about. And the last one, but the least, is the collaborative leadership. This is what glues, it's what brings everything together. And then we need to have a competent team, high-performance team. We have to build the teams. Don't expect nothing will come out of thin air. We have to build the teams. Somebody was asking, just I was presenting a similar thing there at WEC 2019. Somebody was asking, where do you get the teams from? No, you can't expect teams to come from somewhere. You're a class 1 contractor, tier 1 contractor. You have to build the teams. So train them. Get all the way from the graduate engineers. There at Jacobs, that's what we do. We train. The people will be rotated, and depending on their interest, we give them an opportunity to set themselves within that. And then we keep rotating them, and we upskill in the process there. And shared values. When we, as a consultants and contractors, we share the values to the client, then everybody is working towards the goal. And there is no divergent views or commercial views that is going to impact. So that's me. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, please.
Just not setting the framework up right and the environment for the project. So what I see is a lot of disparate objectives between the client, the contractor, and even within the contractor, from the bidding team to the actual delivery team, and there's no enduring accountability.
Yep.
They get rewarded for say, winning work, but maybe not winning work that they can deliver at a profit.
Yep.
So how do you tackle that problem and actually set the right measures up to get the right behaviors to have a successful project?
Absolutely. Great question there. So when you look at the tendering, so what I can just give you an example of what I did in the Middle East. I identify the project manager at the time of the bid itself. And I ensure that person will be sitting with the contracts manager and the costies, so who are going to build the estimates, and with the schedulers, and pass on their knowledge, local knowledge, what they might be having, and then they identify, if we in this project, so these are the resources I need. And then we look into their workload and see that, okay, these people are available, not available, whatever that could be. So that means we are giving that accountability back to the project manager who is going to build it. Now what's happening is, if the pre-tender and post-tender, if they are two different departments, the pre-tender guys will be foot in the door. They don't care how we are going to deliver. He gets his big bonus, fat bonuses, he takes and he just walks out.
Yes.
And then the poor guy who comes later, he says that, what? How am I going to deliver this particular project?
Yes.
And it's not defined, the time is not enough, you don't have enough budget, we don't have people, and what? All sorts of questions should be raised.
They re-estimate, reschedule it.
Absolutely. And start blame game, now it should have been done like this, and then pass it on to the client. And start looking for the gaps, how we can recover the money. That's one of the things I was talking about. So in order to have this, the culture, basically that comes from the top down. That's where the governance comes into the picture. Your top man within the organization should be aware that his team, when they are involved in the tendering, in the early stages itself, there's no blame game. So they take the accountability, and when you are made responsible, Mr. X, you are going to be the project manager for that. At the time of tender itself, you will ensure that enough of the scope is well defined, or whatever that conventional method of doing the things what we do. And when you go for the delivery, once you win it, there is nowhere to look and no one to blame. So thereby the accountability comes into the picture, and you will try to have good relation with the client, and you know the scope, you know the project well before you get it. Does it answer your question?
It does, but I think it even goes higher than that. There's so much infrastructure work out there. We've got to get our slice of the pie. That's 4 bids we weren't successful, and then the governments start to release the reins a little bit, and then they take the next job, So
back in the Middle East, in the EPC, I was an EPC contractor, we used to do everything under the sky. Only 5% we used to sublet. Yeah. And that 5% happened to be the specialist things like, geotextiles, geogrids, or where you don't have any control whatsoever, 100 years of warranty you require to give. Thereby, we bring the party, and subcontractor vendor will just manage that. And other than that, 95% we used to do in-house. That means we have all the metrics in place. And to share with you guys, one more aspect is, every day, end of the day, we'll be looking into the unit rate. Whatever the progress that has been made, that's the requirement of the project engineer and the project manager as a whole. He'll be looking to that element. Okay, this much of asphalt you're supposed to do. What is your material, labor, equipment, subcontractor per unit? And that we compare against at the time of a bid and the stretch target we have given to the project manager. And if they are not working, then we'll go back to the root cause. What can be done? Oh, fronts are not available. So we are only having about 600 meters. And the paver can do something like 2,000 tons, but I'm constrained because of this footprint, what I'm given with. So that means we have to increase the fronts. So we can come out with the solutions for the problem. That means you have to be agile and not the blaming. We don't blame the people. They're saying that, you're only 70% of your efficiency, the productivity. We find the reasons and we empower them. We provide them for the support. Thereby, when they, not only if they're, even though they are paid less, they prefer to stay with me because they learn in the process and they take pride in doing the project the right way, and they grow in the process as well. Yes, please.
One of the key things you said was to make sure that the client holds the correct client risk.
Yeah.
And obviously that's the apportionment is important. It seems the market here in Australia typically does push risk to the contractor. How have you had those difficult conversations with the client and convinced him or her to pass them to contractors?
So, very good. You guys are asking me tough questions today. I thought that we are off the time and I can just go off. No, I can't. Okay, sorry. So it's a very valid question there. When the client says, this is the DNC contract, it's the contractor's responsibility to just manage that. So that point of time, I tell the client that you have uncertainty with regard to the latent conditions. I just take an example there, latent conditions. So what I do is that I tell the client, you pass it on to the contractor or you hold on to that. If you hold on to that, that is better off for you because you're paying twice. Or if you want to pass it on to the contractor, you need to map it properly, risk mapping. And that's where I do Monte Carlo simulations as well. So my other end, my extreme end, will be 3 to 4 times of the most likely estimate cost. So because I don't know what I don't know, so that's where my tail will be longer. And thereby, I map it in such a way in my risk modeling and come out with the contingencies appropriate, big bucket of money there. And then the client says that, no, contract is awarded. The contractor has taken the risks. Hold on to some of the money from the bucket, set aside. This is where the management reserve comes into the picture as well. So not only the project contingency, we need to have a bit of a management reserve for exigencies. You have to be flexible enough to accommodate. So I'm not saying that all contractors are saints and everybody will be doing the right way. The intention is to make money. But if you have a proper relation, the trust, we talked about trust also this morning, somebody was talking about, when we have that collaborative working environment and trust each other, that's what I did under the FIDIC conditions in Middle East. I used to tell the client, these elements I'm not doing, Mr. Client. You can hold on to that. Even though it is part of my BOQ, I don't claim that. It's a lump sum contract. But having said that, can you accommodate the scope which is not priced or included in your MTOs? Thereby, in the BOQ, it is not there. We ended up in doing some rock blasting or something like that. They have, as per the feed design that was given to us, it was about 20% rock blasting, and we ended up in doing 45%. It is a very expensive piece of work, what we need to do. We went back to the client. We established everything, the relation with the client, and client appreciated saying that, yep, Santhosh, okay, I'm ready to accommodate that. What are you giving me back where you're not using it? So give and take. It cannot be always me, give it me. It doesn't work like that. You have to be accommodative and you have to take care of the client is responsible to his manager or whoever that person is. And everybody is bound by delivering the projects within the time that has been given. So that's a very tight rope walk. But I tell the client, as I said before, I tell the client, no, you hold on to that. And if they decide, no, you're a consultant, you made your point, that's it. So be it, it's your cause, whatever that you want, you do. But as a consultant, ensure to transfer that sort of a knowledge transfer or whatever that constraints you think are appropriate, pass it on to the client, tell them. And some of the clients recently I've seen in the Department of Transport main roads or in Inland Rail or they're in Cross River Rail, the projects I'm working on. So the clients are willing to accept that, saying that, yep, we accept, we appreciate your thinking and your insight into these things, and we can accommodate that. So any further questions for me?
I guess it's a slight extension of the previous question, but I'm personally an EPC contractor for the oil and gas industry.
Yep.
And looking at your presentation, I understand that's the ideal way of doing things, but when, as a contractor, we're in the situation of we have to bid with multiple parties that want the same contract, and if we don't get it, we don't get any sales. And we're tempted to, do the opposite of what you're trying to do. How would you advise, I guess, the EPC contractor during that bidding phase to be able to, align as much as possible to that? I mean, if the client is, from top down doing those kind of things and aligning it perfectly, that would be a problem. But I have never seen a client that did things like that. So as a contractor side, how would you kind of persuade it?
Yeah. So very good question again. Yeah. I was an EPC contractor myself, as I said before. So what we need to do is that with regard to the examples, did you hear about something called Project 13?
Oh, no.
Just go to the website and Google. You can just Google that. It is called Project 13 number. So that talks about this collaborative way of doing the jobs there. And they did that in UK. And that is very successful. And industry is moving towards that now. Even in Australia, we are preaching wherever we happen to go, this sort of a collaborative approach. That's what we are talking to the clients, the contractors, and the consultants. And it is well received. It's not happening. It's not going to happen tomorrow or day after, but down the line. But we have to make a change. Or the insanity we talked about, the clients are like that, and the contractors foot in the door, the same old story. Time and again it goes through.
And you're doing the same thing over and
Absolutely.
over. Yeah, and losing money for everyone. So.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your patience. for being with me for so long. Cheers.